Rest in peace to Chuck Mangione. Where do I begin? I remember back in the day, uh, Feel So Good was like a piece that I never forgot. I still remember back in the day, my father played that on the 8 track, and it was a very cool piece of music. Now, this is before I got all, what's the word I want to use? Before I got all picky about how I listen to jazz artists or instrumental music. But it was such a catchy piece. It's like one of those songs that you just kind of resonated, just kind of stayed in you. And you just da na 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 na. And then, because Bill Conti had came up with Rocky year before that, and then Herb Alpert with Rise, which is still one of the most catchiest grooves you're ever going to hear. And that was a day and time when instrumentalist music and having hits was no thing. We didn't even get into all the, you know, tiers of it or how we just groove to it. Now, you can make the case that Chuck Mangione was a forerunner for Kenny G and also Tom Brown and a certain type of instrumentalist where the groove was, but it was catchy. But his success story was crazy. He won a couple of Grammys when they mattered. He did soundtracks for Cannonball. He had crossed over. Now, when I first saw Chuck Mangione, I thought he was Ron O'Neal Superfly because he had the blowout and the hat. So I thought, oh, he doubling up. But it was just one person. But it was catchy. It was memorable. And he lived a long life. I still remember that he was on A&M Records back in the day. I remember, I listened to his stuff. He did the Olympics in 1980. And he always had like these big cuts. Music critics didn't care for him. I think Miles Davis had dissed him. I remember somebody was talking trash, but hey, the guy came up with a piece of music that paid the bills. So what can you say? I mean, "Feel So Good" was one of those songs that it just was, instrumental music, 9+ minutes long. George Benson was doing stuff, but this just hit a little bit different. It was just like a real melodic. He had a real melodic vibe to him, which was so cool. And I think that coming in that particular era, um, you know, people appreciated that a bit more. I think the music palette back then was way more versatile than anything. You hear turkeys out here today talking about they listen to everything like everything. No, they don't. Because back then, you had funk, rock, country, blues, jazz, fusions, hip hop, disco, electro. You had all kinds of whatever type you want to come with it. And everybody could get in where they fit in. And and it was one of those things that it hit some kind of way. So he definitely is somebody that I remember just from that perspective alone when the first time I heard him, because it didn't sound like anything else at the radio at the time. And to be honest with you, it still really doesn't, because somebody hearing "Feels So Good" on an early day, on a crispy morning, and the sun just starting to percolate, it still hits. It's you sometimes you just hear things and you're just like, wow, I remember where I was, and I remember how that vibe was. So, rest in peace to a guy that was it was cool. It was cool music, and I liked the vibe of it, and I didn't want to not, because I remembered very well. I still remember hearing it, and every time I heard his music, it was pretty cool. Because it put me in a pretty good mood, and I remember just listening to it. So I like the tone. Prayers and thoughts. Please hit like, subscribe, welcome thoughts, comments, and I do respond. Thank you. Wash your hands. Keep your mind clear. Watch out for another. Share it if you like. Stay safe, stay blessed, stay woke, stay free. I'm out one time. Peace.